What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the arena. We have Eric Hinman today. Eric is a hybrid athlete, five-time Ironman. Actually, just said he got done with a mountain biking ride. I think I got that right. He's very active, clearly. Serial entrepreneur, brand builder, and specializes in scaling early stage consumer and wellness brands. So, first of all, Eric, thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate your time and the wisdom that I know you're going to deliver. Why don't we start with who is Eric Hinman?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Who is Eric Hinman? I mean, I would say that's changed pretty drastically over the years. Growing up, I loved team sports. I played basketball, I played baseball, I ran track, I ran cross country, I played a year of football. And then in college, I got into weightlifting and partying very, very hard. And then after college, I was very much into entrepreneurship and building businesses and just chasing the public perception of success and money. And then in my late 30s, I found triathlon and I found a personal trainer, and that set me on this journey that I'm on now and have been for the last 15 or 16 years of just living a life really based around wellness activities. And, in my late 20s and early 30s, it was chasing success in triathlon, trying to get to the Ironman World Championships. And the last 10 or so years, it's been much more based around just feeling really good every single day. And along the way, I've been able to build a social media presence that's turned into a business where I'm able to help mainly early stage wellness brands get the word out about their brand. So now I would say brand builder, lifestyle athlete, and I love community. I love hosting people. I love putting like-minded people together in settings where, they can bond over doing uncomfortable things.
Great. Well, there's a lot there that we get to unpack. Well, I guess what was that transition like for you? Just what was going on in your life where you went from partier, entrepreneur, chasing the public perception of, whatever it is that you alluded to there, to then switching over to pursuing more wellness? What was going on in your life was there anything internal that had to sort of evolve for you?
Yeah, I think it was just trying something new and feeling better. I thought that I was living the life of building a business and, having nice things and partying really hard. And then I started training with a personal trainer, and I felt really energized after all of those workouts. And that led me to starting to run again. And then that led me to joining this local triathlon club. And, that led me down this whole path of chasing athletic success as opposed to monetary success. And, during those years, 2010 to 2014, when I was competing in Ironman, it was really just based around how I felt. I felt amazing most days from the training I was doing. I felt really fulfilled. And I was just satisfied at the end of every day from what I had accomplished each day. And, ultimately that led to building a business around it. But during that time period, it was just exuding passion for this newfound love for triathlon and wellness and recovery protocols. So there was no one defining moment. There was no one time where I just ripped the Band-Aid off, or I got arrested and I had to change my life around. It was just trying something new and recognizing that I felt more fulfilled in that life than I did in my previous life, and that I had been going through the motions of life, just really trying to appease what I thought my parents would deem successful, that the public would deem successful, instead of doing things that really fulfilled me. And it was interesting. Prior to that, I was really just chasing everything, chasing opportunities, knocking on doors, going to networking events. And the last 15, 16 years have been much more about attracting, just getting to a place where I've shared a lot of value, I've met a lot of people, and now I'm able to attract a lot of opportunities. So I would say looking back, that's one of the biggest transitions that happened that I share with others, of build something so that you can start attracting opportunities instead of just always chasing opportunities.
And so, what would you say? I mean, I'm sure there's people listening to this that are like, well, Eric, that sounds great. Of course, I want to attract, I don't want to chase. More practically, what advice would you give to someone that's like, I want to start attracting the type of people I want in my life, the type of feelings that you mentioned, feeling fulfilled, energized, happy, whatever it might be, rather than chase? How would you maybe more practically put that into advice for somebody?
Yeah, I mean, the way I've been able to do it is building a presence online, starting a social channel, starting a YouTube channel, starting a podcast like what you guys have, by sharing with the world on a regular basis. That attracts, interesting people, interesting conversations, and eventually opportunities into your life. Before we hosted people every single night at our house, which we do now, I was attending a lot of different wellness events. I was attending triathlon clubs. I was going to CrossFit gyms. I was putting myself in areas where chance encounters with like-minded people could happen. So, that's another thing I would recommend is, instead of going to the gym with your headphones on and just like tuning out, like join a community-based gym where you can meet people, or join whatever your hobby is, join a club where you can meet other people that have similar hobbies. And then, I got to a point where I was able to build a place here in Colorado that we call Muscle Mountain that attracts, probably thousands of people every single year that come and experience our backyard. And, through that of just leaving this small, memorable impression with a lot of people, so many opportunities come back to me. Eventually get to a place where you can host and, host a dinner club, host a run club, host things. And that's a great way to meet people and leave people with a memorable impression. But I mean, the easiest first step is just, create content online. We all have that ability now. And if you can figure out something narrow and niche and something around your superpower, or maybe speak to people about where you were a couple of years ago, and you obviously solved those problems for yourself. There's probably someone else who's experiencing that. So sharing lessons you've learned along your journey and just being consistent. I mean, that really is the key to success in anything, is compounding consistencies, staying in your lane, recognizing when there's an opportunity that you can run with, and just putting the blinders on and focusing on that opportunity.
Yeah, wow. I feel like I've got like some sticky notes I can just write out, and put them like reminders. A lot of just really good tips there. And funny enough, like some of our first guests, our earliest guests when we started this podcast were from our gym. Thanks to Matt over here, just went up, and I'm more the headphones guy that you described. And but yeah, I guess when you were, I keep going back into your life more so. I'm curious, like, how much of this was you realizing there was an opportunity to build a business, versus how much of this was just, I feel good, I'm doing this, I'm living this life, I want to continue to just be in this area, and I'm going to just, maybe do things for fun, show up for just because it feels right, and things start to attract and come to you? Like, what's that balance between, I'm starting to think about this from a, like, how do I build this into a business? I see opportunity to keep leaning into this, versus, no, this is just where I want to be, because this is what's filling my cup right now.
Yeah. I mean, how it started was the former. It was very much, I just feel really good. And, I recognized that I was meeting interesting people. I was having interesting conversations. And at the time I had a software business, and, I was definitely getting some business through being involved in Ironman. I was meeting a lot of entrepreneurs. People were reaching out around my success in Ironman and, expressing interest in working together. So, it definitely started attracting some opportunities. But it wasn't until, 2 or 3 years after I was out of Ironman that I really started building a business around it. So that was never the intention from the start. I did not start social media with any intention at all of it turning into a business. I made my first post on Instagram in probably 2010, and it wasn't until 2015, 2016 that I maybe made a few $100 those years. And then 2017, 18 is when, it started generating some revenue. And, 18, 19, 20 is when it turned into a business. And the last 4 or 5 years is when it really took off. So it was, I feel like success comes after years of grinding, and then it comes in spades. Like my journey was Ironman training, just sharing a shitload of value, just sharing my journey. And, then maybe there'd be like a little lucky break and, it was a little upward trajectory. And then the last 4 years, it was the hockey stick, the top of the hockey stick portion where it just took off. But, it was 10 years of compounding that started to lead to some of those opportunities. And then, opportunities lead to more opportunities. So much of my incoming business now comes from the business I've done. So, I think that's another lesson I've learned all along the way in all of my businesses I've started is, once you get to a place where you've done enough business, then you get name dropped, and then that's the easiest way to get new business.
And so what would you say to somebody, I mean, you mentioned at one point in your journey that you were chasing a lot of the external validation, public perception, everything was based off of monetary success. What would you say to somebody that is maybe chasing monetary success? Is there anything that you can say to somebody that maybe has never experienced that? Let's somebody that comes from, like a lower middle class or has never had money. Is there anything that you can say to that person other than them having to experiencing it themselves? Like, what would you say to that type of person?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, I've built a business around social media, but I don't know that that's the end-all be-all because it's just kind of a never-ending trap of wanting more. It'll never be enough, and, the quick dopamine hits that you get from making more money or buying that nice thing are very quick. I've recognized that the journey is what matters most, and if you're not enjoying the journey, buying the mansion at the end of the tunnel isn't going to satisfy you. It's having an amazing journey where every day you feel like you're living with purpose, you feel like you're giving back, you feel like you're connecting with the type of people you want to connect with. So that's the biggest thing I've recognized along the way is, I'm much more interested in just stacking perfect days and doing things that I enjoy every single day, being around people I want to be around, learning from the people that I'm around, surrounding myself with people that push me outside of my comfort zone, rather than, chasing that shiny object at the end of the rainbow. Because, even like getting to the Ironman World Championships, like, it was cool being there, but it was really the days and days of just grinding and working that really made it fulfilling. So yeah, the journey is what matters most. So if you're not enjoying your journey, don't think that, this shiny object is gonna, make you happy.
And so I guess, how would you describe how you felt about your life purpose, maybe in the first chapter after college days and starting out with being an entrepreneur? In your mind, if you went back to that person, what would they say was their purpose in life to what is your purpose in life today?
Yeah, I think purpose back then was accumulate wealth, try and make money so that I could do expensive bottle service, buy nice watches, buy nice suits, buy a cool car. That was my purpose in those years. See how drunk I could get, be the life of the party. That was my purpose in my 20s. Now I would say my purpose is building community and like sharing what I've learned with others. I really enjoy those two things. And then I also like pushing myself. I like seeing what I'm capable of, and I like seeing like what my limits are in many different respects. So I would say all of those things now kind of define who I am. Building community, putting people together, sharing value with the world, and then pushing myself physically and mentally and emotionally on a regular basis.
And then you've mentioned your personal trainer a couple times in terms of what kind of had an impact in terms of the direction you took your life. I guess my question is, what role did that personal trainer play in your life? And as you reflect back, I guess I'd just be, I'm just more curious, generally speaking, what that relationship is, maybe how it's evolved. But you mentioned a couple times, and I just find it interesting.
Yeah, so that was in my late 20s, probably when I was 27 or 28, when I hired, his name was Henry Elwin. And yeah, it was very defining because I had gotten pretty out of shape and I was just looking to get back into aesthetically good looking shape. And over a 6 month period, not only did I get into aesthetically good looking shape, I felt fit, and that's what started me running again. I was playing tennis during that time period, and it also exposed me to other people who were running and biking, and that's ultimately how I got into triathlon. So I would say there were three things during that time period of 27 to 30 years old that made a massive difference. One was him, just having the structure, the accountability, the knowledge, him pushing me every single day to do these CrossFit type workouts before I knew what CrossFit was. And then the second was finding that triathlon club and buying a bike and starting running again and really diving into triathlon. And then the third was hiring a triathlon coach, Mike Corona, who taught me that there was a difference between training and exercise. I was burning calories and I was going hard every single day in the gym and with all my triathlon workouts. And he taught me, periodization and, training with the Maffetone method, which is a heart rate training method. And, that there's a right way and a wrong way to train if you want to excel at endurance sports. So I would say those three things all were incredibly defining over that time period.
And what does it take? What does it take to run an Ironman, to run a triathlon? Ignorantly, I don't even know what an Ironman is, and I hear about it all the time. But in terms of what you have to do. So, what does it take to run one, both mentally and physically?
So, an Ironman is swimming 2.4 miles, biking 112 miles, and then running a marathon off the bike. And a good time is sub 10 hours. You have to do it within 17 hours to say that you finished it. And the cool thing about it is no one is just showing up to that. You have to train for it. It's an obstacle that you have to backtrack your way into overcoming, which is what I really enjoyed about it. So there's obviously a significant difference of going 17 hours versus going 9 hours. And, to go 9 hours and change, you're really dedicating your life to something. I was training 20 plus hours a week. That was just training hours. I was also doing recovery protocols and getting massages, and, it just sacrificed a lot during that time period to stack that type of training and recovery volume to get to the Ironman World Championships. So I think more than anything, it taught me how to commit to one thing and how to put blinders on to be really successful at something. And then I've just applied that to other things in life when I find something that I really enjoy that I want to succeed at. But it's tough. It's tough physically. It's tough mentally. It's tough time-wise. If you're juggling a bunch of glass balls, it requires a significant amount of time, just like building a business, and building $100 million business, how much time that takes. But, I think it taught me a lot of really, really valuable life lessons beyond just the fact that I was really cardio fit during that time period.
Yeah, and you said it earlier that part of your purpose is pushing yourself physically, and there's a quote, and I forget who the philosopher is, but it's something along the lines of it's a shame when I think they use, man does not discover the full potential of their physical capabilities. Essentially, I can't remember the exact wording of the quote, but do you have a point of view on that being a value of yours and what that means to you and why that's a value that maybe others can adopt, which is this idea that we owe it, almost owe it to ourselves to push ourselves to physical boundaries?
I think in a way that's our evolution, you had to be physically fit in order to survive. So that's ingrained in our DNA. So yeah, I do think physical wellness is so important, not just for yourself, but for your loved ones. If you're not actualizing your full potential, then you're not giving your full potential to others. I think it's amazing when your cup is so full that you can give back. And I think physical wellness is a huge component of you having a very full cup. But yeah, just embracing discomfort, I think it lends itself well to any hard things that happen in life that are unexpected. A family member gets sick, a business is failing, pushing yourself daily, whether it's taking an ice bath or, doing a hard CrossFit workout or, running 10 miles. All of these things build mental resilience. So I think they're just tools in your shed for when other discomforts come that are unexpected.
So just real quick there, I pulled the quote, and I might as well, right? The quote is Socrates, actually, and it says, "It is a shame for a man to grow old without seeing the beauty and strength of which his body is capable." Mm-hmm. And it just sounds a lot of what you described. And just quickly there, you'd mentioned like that enables you to show up more for others. Mm-hmm. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, just having a full cup so that you can give back, whether it's mentoring people, giving to charities, donating in a time of crisis, donating time, resources, knowledge, your network. If your cup isn't full, then it's really difficult to give back if you're just, scrambling every single day to fill your cup.
And I gotta go back to the Ironman. I mean, that's crazy. Once you said it, I was like, "Oh yeah, I've heard of that." And every time I hear it, I'm like, "Man, that's something else." I mean, what was the toughest part of that journey mentally? In any of the, I think I read that you did 5. Mm-hmm. Can you pinpoint to a moment mentally during any of those 5? Like, what was the toughest part for you?
In general, the toughest part was always the run, just running a marathon off the bike and trying to run it close to 3 hours. You're just, playing with fire of, cramping versus not cramping, having a good race versus, having to DNF. So that was always an issue. I would say like mile 16 on the run was always like pretty daunting. Mile 1 through 10, I could get through. The bike definitely wore on me towards the end, from 80 to 112, but it's not as abusive to your body as running that marathon. So like mile 16 to 22, those miles were the hardest in the marathon for me, because there's still a lot of like room to fuck up and a lot of room for your body and mind to give up. And once I got to like mile, 22, 23, like I just knew I could grind it out from there. So that was the hardest. But ultimately the hardest was the 4-year commitment to make it to the World Championships. Just, the 20 hours a week for 52 weeks. That was daunting. And ultimately I burned out. I was doing too much and I had given up too much. I had gotten to a place where I had fallen out of alignment and out of balance. So I recognized that and, switched gears, and that's why I ultimately exited the sport, as it was all consuming for me. But I'm glad I took it to where I did, because again, that was the first time I had ever done something where I became world-class at it.
Go ahead, MD. I was going to say, like, did you see any sort of common themes between the other participants? Like, I don't know if you got to know a bunch of them in terms of just like the driving force or the type of person they were. Like, what did you notice amongst the community?
Yeah, I think everyone had their own driving force. You do need to have significant purpose when you're pushing yourself in those things. Some it may have been in memory of a family member, some it might have been a weight loss journey. Like, everyone had a different purpose. But I would say the one common thread is, everyone there sacrificed a lot to be there, and they're obsessed with self-progression. They're obsessed with embracing discomfort. That is definitely a common quality amongst all of them. And, many of them were addicts. They may have been once a drug addict, and they rechanneled that addiction to something that is much more positive than, drugs. So, everyone had a different purpose, but I would say that those were some of the underlying themes that I saw amongst all the competitors. And definitely a sense of camaraderie, like people cheering for each other. I still get it. I think it's really cool if I just go for a routine run in my neighborhood in Denver, and I pass someone on the street and they're like, thumbs up, see me running, like, that's cool. They recognize that you're doing something that is making you a little bit better. So I love that camaraderie in Ironman. And I actually just competed in High Rocks this past weekend in Las Vegas. And very similar. High Rocks has that same type of camaraderie and community that Ironman had, where everyone's cheering for each other, and everyone's pushing and everyone wants to do their best, but they're also rooting for everybody else out there.
So what does the mental preparation look like? When you're training physically, I'm sure there's also mental training, and I know that you're in like more of the holistic health and wellness, and so, is there self-talk happening at mile 22? Like what's going on between the ears in preparation, but also in execution of the Ironman, that you can help educate people that are more curious about the mental aspect of the game?
Yeah, in preparation, I was doing a lot of my training indoors on a bike trainer, and I would watch the Ironman World Championships for the first couple hours of most of my bike training sessions, and I was just visualizing being there. When I was out on my runs, I was kind of visualizing running down a Leahy Drive at the World Championships in Kona, so I was putting myself in the place where I wanted to be. And then race day, I would think back, to all of the other training sessions I had. Like, let's say I was at mile 10 and I was hurting. I would think back to an 18-mile run that I did, and I'd be like, I can get through another 18. I've already done this. So I'd think back to previous training sessions. And then when it really started to hurt, all I would think about is the next mile and how good that cup of Coca-Cola was going to taste, how it was going to spike my blood sugar, and how it was going to help me get to the next mile. And then towards the end of the race, I would start thinking about like how amazing the chocolate milk was going to be at the end, how amazing it was going to be to hug my friends and family that were there spectating. Definitely seeing friends and family is a massive boost for emotion. So, just looking forward to seeing people that I knew out on the course. But yeah, you set these mini goals and these, when you're at mile 1 of the marathon, you don't want to think about the daunting task of 25 more. You're just thinking about like that next aid station, that next friend you're going to see, that next incremental, tangible endorphin boost that you're going to get. So that's how I broke it down on race day.
Is chocolate milk like a common end of Ironman thing? Is there like a nutritional role there, or what's
I had like probably 7 or 8 after all of my Ironmans. I still like chocolate milk, but during that time period, I'd have chocolate milk after most of my training sessions. So it's just something I massively look forward to, especially at the end of a race.
Oh man, just consuming food after that would just be amazing. I mean, talk about like in terms of your values where community sits, because it seems like it played a pretty important role in your life, and I'm wondering if that's true, number one, and two, what people might be able to take from you in terms of just the role that community plays.
So I grew up as an only child, and I didn't have brothers or sisters to play with. So I used to have friends over to my house every night to play basketball and play ping pong. And then I had a buddy in high school whose family just kind of had an open door policy for friends to show up and, hang out at his house and ride 4-wheelers and jump in his pond. So I always respected that. And then in college, again, I loved throwing massive parties and leaving people with these memories. And, that's carried through to today of now leaving people feeling better when they came, whether it's a hard workout they did with me or contrast therapy at our house. I just love providing people with a feeling. I've co-owned a gym. I co-owned restaurants in upstate New York. So those were, kind of clubhouses that I wanted to treat people to. I've just always enjoyed, leaving people with a memory. And then I also enjoy connecting people, like putting people together that I know will benefit from knowing each other, and then just seeing them go off and, be friends or build something together. I get a lot of satisfaction out of that.
Well, I was going to ask you, which I didn't, but it kind of would have answered part of the question. So I'm going to ask it anyway, because maybe there's more there. But what do we need to know about your childhood potentially in order to better understand who you are today? I mean, I think that question on community just answered a part of it in terms of being an only child and then seeking community. But is there anything else that's kind of shaped based on who you were growing up that shaped who you are today? or your
Yeah,
values?
for sure. I mean, I love sports. I played team sports. I was most athletic in high school. I played 1 year of basketball in college. So I definitely loved sports. I loved competing. I loved pushing myself. I ran cross country and track. So I really enjoyed pushing myself and training in those sports. And my dad was CEO of a small mutual insurance company, and my mom was a school teacher. And I think I really enjoyed watching them lead, and my dad specifically, like running a company. I thought that was cool to like define your destiny and kind of be in control of something. So I think I took those things from my parents that have led to where I am today. I've always built my own businesses and co-founded businesses and invested in businesses. I really like leading the way, and I like defining my own destiny, and that's why I've picked many of the sports that I do now: CrossFit, high rocks, endurance mountain biking races, because I'm the sole person who has control of success or failure in those.
Go ahead, MD.
So I guess pivoting or shifting gears a little bit there, as you have taken up more just holistic health and wellness, everything I hear from you screams like physical, right? Like very athletic, physically demanding. And as you've picked up more of like the holistic side of it, I saw in some of your content you're talking about sleep and environment and community. I'm curious if somebody feels like they're at square one in their life and whatever that means for them, and they feel stuck, and they are listening to this conversation, and they look to Eric and they look at his content and they're like, I want to flip a switch and live this guy's like in this way, right? Not this life, but in this way. What's the first step? Like, where do people out to start for their holistic health journey?
I mean, for me, it was exercise that led to so many other things going right. And that was, the small snowball that led to a massive snowball of wellness. So hiring a personal trainer, that was my first step. If you don't have the motivation, the knowledge, the accountability, a personal trainer is a great step to get all of those things to start in the journey. And then, really from like 2009 to 2014, I picked something each year to really focus on, sleep 1 year, nutrition 1 year, recovery 1 year. And, I've continued to do that each year, is just picking something new to try and tackle. So don't try and do it all at once. Pick something to master and then move on to the next. And know that many of them will piggyback off each other. If you're exercising, then you're going to be more inclined to eat better. If you're eating better and exercising, you're probably going to sleep better. If you're exercising, you'll probably be meeting other like-minded people that are pushing themselves, which could lead to opportunities. So a lot of these things, they're multitasking without multitasking, or they're going to lead to compounding benefits over time.
So I got a question for you. I got biggest lesson from the following three things. Biggest lesson from the Ironman that you learned, biggest lesson from running a business, and biggest lesson from investing in a business.
Okay, biggest lesson from Ironman was probably the power of compounding consistencies. It wasn't just like being remarkable occasionally. It was being pretty unremarkable, but on a very regular basis. Just stacking miles, stacking tiny wins, and then 4 years later, all of a sudden, I'm at the Ironman World Championships. It wasn't from just going out and doing one feed and then not doing that again for another week. Lesson from building businesses would be probably singular focus. My first business was a property and casualty insurance agency, and I started like really wide and broad, and then I narrowed into focusing on insuring campgrounds and marinas. And once I did that, that's when the business really took off. With my current business, I work with early stage wellness brands, and I know exactly what they need. I know the value I can bring, and I stay really narrow with that niche. So I do these founders only events, wellness retreats for founders of brands. So go niche and be known for something. Those are the biggest things I've learned from business. And then in investing, I've learned a lot of things in investing. Invest in things you know. That's super important. Not investing in things where someone just gives you a tip. I tend to invest in areas that I know pretty well. And then like early stage investing, I like investing in people who've either already done it once and they're doing it again, so they already have a lot of it figured out, or making sure that the founder of the company has a clear path to success, whether that's they dialed in their customer acquisition costs, they have enough capital to run the business, and they understand who they could potentially sell it to. All of those things are really, really important when you're investing in early stage businesses. Investing in the stock market, S&P 500, that would be my advice, is just going like really broad as opposed to trying to just pick lottery picks. But yeah, with the early stage investing, I've learned a lot over the years, and there's a lot of businesses that I invested in 10 years ago that I wouldn't invest in now. I also have many more opportunities coming to me, so I guess the other thing would be don't be afraid to pass and make sure that you have a really good sounding board. Like I run a lot of deals off people in private equity who see deals day in and day out, and they have zero empathy, and all they're looking at is numbers. Like I develop empathy when I talk to founders of companies. I can get like really passionate about what they're building, but then I send the numbers to someone in private equity and they don't know the person, then there's no empathy, and they're just like, making a decision based off numbers.
MD, you got anything else? Because I got a couple.
Yeah, I guess,
Right.
just the, for somebody who has like accomplished as much as you have, right? Business, physically, just life holistically. Do you ever go back to, 10-year-old Eric, and do you recognize yourself in the moment for where you're at today and what you've done in all of your life? And if so, like when you go back to 10-year-old Eric, what are the things you tell him in terms of what he gets to look forward to in terms of where you're at today? And then what do you think is next for you?
So I look back only because I do so many podcasts now, and I recognize that in doing these, it allows me to look back and share things that can help others. So that's why I look back. But I mean, typically I'm living in the present and looking forward to the future. So if I'm not doing podcasts regularly, then I definitely forget about self-reflection. So that's why I enjoy doing these so much. It reminds me of things that I should share and that can be valuable to help others. And then future, I really don't look too far into the future. I really try and just like replicate days that I know work for me and lead to, amazing months and amazing years and hopefully amazing decades. I guess where I'm headed though is being more ingrained with brands that I work with, and building a larger community around wellness and business. So doing more of these founders only events that I do, hosting more. Right now we're building a house in Austin, and we're building it as this wellness oasis where we'll definitely be hosting a lot of people and a lot of brand activations. I want to continue doing more and more in real estate, where I'm developing properties with friends around wellness in places where I want to be and places that I want to share with others. But more than anything, like I really just replicate days, and I just know that compounding effect will lead to great things over time.
Thanks to the Ironman. All right, so the MD, we're getting good at this thing, because that was basically going to be my question, kind of where you see yourself next. So we're getting good. But anyway, the last question that I have for you that we ask all of our guests is, what in life are you most proud of?
Right now, I guess I would say inspiring others to not just go through the motions and to live a life with purpose, whatever that may be. It doesn't have to be my life, but I know I inspire many to like take a step back and rethink how they're living their life, and making sure that they're living it in a way that they're stoked about. And in a way where their head hits the pillow at the end of the day and they're like, that was a fucking epic day. I think that's what I'm most proud of, that I've been able to just incrementally share regularly on social media, my journey and, how I got to where I am, and allowing others to hopefully design a similar life that they want to live.
Eric Hinman, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.